BitMaker Labs is a company in Toronto that delivers courses for people who are interested in getting into technology and building. And if you're, let's say, an artist or an actor or a teacher or something that's your background is not in technology, and they're designing these courses to get you into web development, building blogs, websites. That after going through that entry level. And well, me, that's hackathon.challengepod.com. If you've heard about your hack, if you it was this kind of similar thing, but interesting event to check out. It's free as well.
Hi everybody. To do me a huge and slider, I want to say a huge from our organization. 5 learners at summer camp thanks to the competition that just launched today. It's called the CST Inspire. We win the grand prize to make the majority of those workshops free. That means that over 1,000 girls across 15 cities in Canada will learn to code. But the grand prize is won by popular vote. So please head to bit.ly/voteglc and vote for Girls Learning Code. And you can vote every single day that the rounds are open. If you want to receive email notifications and reminders to vote, please head to the second link, which is bit.ly/voteglc list. So on behalf of the 1,000 girls that will learn to code, thank you so much. And thanks to the Theodor team as well.
Alright, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to get started. We have the fast 5. So we'll get ready to show for the fast 5. And I'll put the slides up right now.
Okay, you can follow the cues, it's numbered, so hopefully. Hi everybody, my name is Glenn, I'm with Creative Niche, and we're a creative employment firm, in case you haven't heard of us. You can find us at creativeniche.com if you'd like to learn more, and we have a couple representatives here as well. Dorothy, Adele, and Gassia are in the back, if you'd like to speak with them afterwards. I will have to run off and vote and do my civic duty. But today I wanted to talk to you about a few quick tips for people that are currently freelancing but are looking to go permanent. So this is just really the tip of the iceberg and kind of a lead off and some discussion points, but hopefully it'll provide some value. So 5 things that you're going to want to do when you're considering going from freelance roles to a permanent role is, of course, first you're going to want to determine your salary. Now you can do this by taking your hourly rate, prorating it to a year by timesing it by 1,800 or 2,000 hours, depending on how many hours a week you work. And then you can have that number, but it's not really going to be that accurate because you have to consider the security and amenities of a full-time role. So with the full-time role, it may come with an overall dip in compensation, especially if you were billing out, say, 70 hours a week, obviously, when you freelance. So it's critically important to research market rates for your role and be sure to leverage your unique experience and skills along with the client's needs and salary expectations. So moving on to the second point, you're going to want to carefully consider some value adds whenever you're looking at a full-time role. So value adds can include benefits, possible RRSP matching, education funds, and anything else that the company might be willing to provide. So expanding upon value adds, the largest in terms of perceived and actual value is likely your health benefits. So those are going to come in the form of traditional insured plans or a spending account with set contributions. So sometimes if an employer is unwilling to meet your salary expectations, you may be able to negotiate an increase in benefits to kind of close that gap, as there's no source deductions made on benefits and it's a little cheaper for the employer. RRSP matching is not necessarily given, but you should certainly ask about it when you're considering a full-time role. Same thing with an education fund. That might even be more rare, but it's a strong value add if a company does offer that to you. So factor all those into your overall compensation package when considering any role. So number 3, something to consider closely is the notification period. How much notification do you give to your current employer especially if you're on a contract role when you're looking to leave it for a full-time role. So the Employment Standards Act doesn't actually stipulate how much you should give, but generally the rule of thumb is that it's wise to give the same amount of notice to an employer that they would be required to give to you if they were letting you go. So what that equates to is essentially 1 week's notice between 3 months and a year of continual employment, 2 weeks notice between 1 and 3 years, and then an additional week's notice for each year of employment after that. So it's a nice rule of thumb to follow. You have to consider that the Toronto tech and creative community is close-knit and tight, and of course you don't want to burn any bridges on your way out. So number 4, vacation periods and what you can expect when you're taking on a new role in terms of the initial vacation period. So 2 weeks is the bare minimum, and actually you're only eligible for 2 weeks after 12 months from your hire date. Now most employers won't adhere to that. They're going to give you at least 2 weeks in your first year of employment, and that's the bare minimum that they owe you. And as a junior, you might expect to see that, but moving on to more intermediate or senior roles, you should likely expect at least 3 to 4 weeks upon hire, and then more with tenure. So it's worth asking potential employers what that would look like 5 years out, and at what milestones you get additional vacation time. So lastly, moonlighting. If you're looking at continuing to do outside work, outside of your current role, the new role that you're looking at, you're going to want to take into account conditions that may stipulate no freelancing to be done outside of your role, or certainly not with your direct client base or your competition. You'll want to avoid conflicts of interests, obviously. Employers sometimes are concerned about the possibility of diminished quality of your primary responsibilities. They might see your work abilities as a well that might run dry. So it's important to have those conversations leading up to a full-time role, especially if you're looking to spend time outside of your primary role offering similar services. So it's just best to be clear with the potential employer and avoid potential conflict down the road. So that's about it for me. Hopefully that provided some value. And if you want to learn more about us, you can find us at creativeniche.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Creative Niche. So I'm going to have Kathleen start with her talk, but where's Creative Niche? So there's 3 of them here.
We've got more of us here too.
Creative
Niche, yeah.
All right, so Creative Niche is, there's 3 folks from Creative Niche, Gassia, Kimi, and
Adele, Dorothy, Glenn.
oh, there's all these guys over there.
Yeah.
Yes. So Creative Niche is all here. Make sure to talk to them if you have any questions about Fast 5 or other questions about freelancing or your career in general. So next we'll have Kathleen, who's going to lead us into social recruiting.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Kathleen, Teixeira. I see a lot of you guys taking pictures, so maybe just get like this angle of me or something. I'm just kidding. So I'm responsible for recruitment at Indigo, and I don't really manage, but I recruit for roles at our home office, our New York design studio, as well as our stores across the country. We are hiring right now as well, specifically in user experience. We're looking for a senior mobile app developer and lots more on our development team. So if you're interested, we can chat later. So I know most people sort of kick these things off by talking about how they have 25 years of experience, but first of all, I think that's like delivering old news, and you guys probably just want to know what I can do for you today. So I think hiring is probably the single most important thing we do in business. How many of you agree with that? Right? So no matter how much strategy or planning, they'll never trump good talent. So that being said, I want to sort of segue into my first experience as a recruiter, and this is really what it looked like and kind of what it felt like every single day. So you have this computer and it matches a bunch of people by keywords to resumes, and sometimes I had to call 75 to 150 people a day, hoping to God that they were interested in the position and or available, and even if they weren't interested, I did my best to sell them the opportunity. And I felt like, you know what, I hate doing this. I don't want to do this. And there has to be another way. There's got to be another way to find, to get people jobs that they like, right? So something hit me, and I don't really know how to explain that. But I found a video that does a really good job at describing it. Can I press play like this?
Nope. Doesn't seem to work.
Not working?
No. That's weird.
No.
Show them how it's done.
Ah, there we go.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to move up.
No,
not gonna
okay,
work,
that's
no.
okay. Anyway, you guys should look it up. It's called Be More Dog. And it's basically about a cat who wakes up and they're really sad and they realize that there's so much more to the world, and they start catching frisbees and chasing after cars and picking up sticks. And it's really uplifting. And that's sort of what it felt like to me. So it sort of dawned on me that social media, is changing the way that we communicate, and inevitably has to be changing the way that we think about recruitment. And that's exactly what it did, right? It's transformed the way that we find people. So we're no longer just looking for talent. It's our job as hiring managers. And how many of you are hiring managers or recruiters in the room? So it's your job, our job, to really get out there and engage people and entice people and attract people to want to work at our organizations, right? So it's something that we need to be doing every day. So what I'm going to talk about today is recruiting then and now, a bit of a candidate experience, and then social recruiting on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And I'm going to cover both direct sourcing as well as sort of talent attraction really quickly, because I only have 20 minutes and I didn't know that. So 1996, 2003, 100% job boards dominated the space. 2003 to 2007, we're looking at 75% job boards, 20% LinkedIn, 5% other. 2007 to 2011, 62% LinkedIn, 36% social media, and that breaks down to Facebook and Twitter. And then 2011 to present, 41% LinkedIn, 39% social media, and the social media breaks down to 41% Twitter, 28% Facebook. So what does this mean? It means that this is changing a lot and really quickly. And these numbers are actually from last year, so they probably look very different again today. So candidate experience, it's never been easier to apply for jobs. People are using their mobile devices, applying for jobs using their Facebook profiles, their LinkedIn profiles, their Google Plus profiles, and more often than not, they're having very little human interaction, right? So what happens is you apply for a job, you get this automated email, they tell you thanks for applying, if we're interested, we'll get back to you. And if you do get chosen, you sometimes go through a really drawn out recruitment process, and the experience is not always the best. You don't always get feedback. So the candidate experience is something that companies are really starting to pay attention now, and it's the fact that the candidate experience is just as important as the consumer experience. It's the same person, right? So they're likely buying from you. We'll get to that in a second. So I just want to quickly read an email from a candidate who applied to one of our positions and how she found out that she didn't get the job. So anyway, I don't have a lot of time, but I want to thank you for taking the time with our phone interview yesterday and for your interest in our company. I also want to let you know that we won't be moving forward to the next interview stage. I wish you success in your future pursuits. I understand you've had a few opportunities. Sounds like a typical response. Anyway, Andrea, half an hour later, a little bit pissed off, says, although I'm grateful for the email, I had expected during the day, as you told me on the phone, to let me know one way or another, as I had expected, that you would at least return my call after I waited all day and put the job offer at the Independent on hold. They wanted me to start today. I thought the phone interview went well and that you were conducting business professionally, therefore I held on as I've always wanted to work in a bookstore. The fact that I put so much time into an online application added to my determination and made me feel committed to the task at hand, getting a job I would enjoy. It is unfortunate that things are too hectic and disconnected these days for people to communicate clearly and stick to their word. How sad that you could not find the time or the compassion to treat me as you would surely want to be treated yourself and return my phone call. Instead, a mechanical way, some would say a cowardly way, was used to get back to me, too late for me to call the independent. I will take this method of conduct as a clear sign that it would not be a pleasant experience to work under such cold and detached policies. It is a shock, but not as a surprise, as I've been aware of what changes took place from a customer's perspective once Kohl's was overtaken, I guess, by Indigo. Anyway, half an hour later, she forwards this to investor relations and says, it's sad, I see there's no link for head office online, only a physical address. It's too bad that it's so difficult to communicate on a human level with your company. But after filling on online forms and a 75 questionnaire, I'm not surprised. I've chosen this contact as I feel I've been an investor in this company for most of my life with all the books I've purchased. And so I'm stunned at what takes place in order to apply for a job. And how it went for me that I will no longer be shopping at your stores. Only small independent bookstores with a human touch and consideration for fellow human beings will be my choice for buying. So, right? So, I mean, customer, right? So the customer is our candidate. The experience should really be the same. So apparently they are measuring candidate experience now, and that's the Candy Awards, run by a nonprofit organization. They're in their 4th year now. They've surveyed about 46,000 candidates and 96 North American companies. 59% of candidates said they had a connection to the company or to the brand before they even applied. So something to keep in mind. So 82% said that they would share a positive experience with their inner circle, and I'll get to what the inner circle means. 64% said they would share a negative experience with their inner circle. 50% said that they would share a positive experience through social media. This looked a lot better before. 32% said that they would share a negative experience with social media. So 44% said my candidate experience would not impact my customer status. 24 said it was pretty good, I'll likely maintain my customer status. 23 said I had a great customer candidate experience and would definitely increase my purchase power. 9% said they had a negative customer experience and that they would no longer be a customer. So what does this all mean, right? It means people talk, and they talk a lot, right? So social media, from a communication perspective, allows people to be completely transparent, and brands really can't hide behind what people are saying, right? So people are perusing all their options, they're figuring out everything they need to know about your company long before they even apply. But we already know that they're probably already a customer. So what's the inner circle look like? Each of us are connected to 5 people. Those 5 people are connected to 5 more people, and it grows. And the social network in Canada specifically, about 350 Facebook friends, 208 followers on Twitter, and 600 first-level connections on LinkedIn. So a lot of people, right? And that's not including everything else. So social recruiting on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. I guess it's important to sort of think about what the differences are, because how we communicate on them are very different. And so how we engage with potential candidates is going to be very different as well, right? So Twitter is a place where we have these really detached conversations. Content is very timely and here and now, and conversations are happening in real time. Facebook, on the other hand, focuses on very deep social relationships that are both online and offline, and content is timeless, so your friends can engage at any time. And then LinkedIn, a professional network that's being used at all stages of the hiring process. So where Facebook and Twitter are still really being used from a talent attraction perspective, LinkedIn is very much dominating at all stages of the recruitment funnel. So recruiting on LinkedIn, how you'll be successful: increasing your visibility, joining groups and following your competitors, sharing interesting and meaningful content, and then staying organized and saving profiles. So starting with I'm just flying through this, I'm sorry. There's a lot to cover and not a lot of time, so I hope you guys could follow. And if not, just raise your hand, let me know, and I'll chill out. So how many of you have seen this image here? Right, so there are different levels to attain sort of all-star status on LinkedIn. And the way that sort of LinkedIn's algorithm, the way that they display and show results is based on your profile completeness. So in order to reach 100% profile completeness, you have to have your industry and location, up-to-date current position with a description, 2 past positions, your education, at least 3 skills, a photo preferably where you're smiling and not your wedding picture, And at least 50 mentions. I don't guess. Well, actually use their wedding picture with their spouse. So how does LinkedIn display these results? Number one, profile completeness. So you're not going to be visible unless your profile is complete. People can't see you. You can't see the full extent of their networks. Connections in common, connections by degree, and then groups in common. And then finally, from an employer, what you choose to write in your LinkedIn summary is really what's going to separate you from other employers. So don't just use text. There's video. You probably have all kinds of YouTube clips, all sorts of stuff, right? So just get creative. Show people what it's really like to work at your company, because that's what they want to know, right? Not just some corporate mission statement, right? They actually want to know what it looks like behind closed doors. So making connections and sending personalized emails. Personalized emails is so important. We've got access to so much information on LinkedIn. You can research, what their past position is. Why are you messaging them? Do you have friends in common? So typically, I'll say something like, "Hey, I hope you don't mind my reaching out to you. We haven't met before, but I noticed that you work in so and so industry. I'd love to connect with you. If there's ever anything you need from me, let me know." But it's personal, and it's not just a blanket kind of message saying, "I have a job. Do you want to work for me?" Because people run away from that, right? They don't want to be sold to, whether it's an opportunity, like whatever it is, right? The conversation's got to be warm, I guess. And then searching for candidates. So instead of just plugging in random words into LinkedIn, how many of you are familiar with Boolean searches, right? All the recruiters in the room. So, doing Boolean searches within LinkedIn, so specific modifiers that'll help you find targeted, will help you find the candidates that you're looking for. So what I try to do is, so here's an example, right? User experience or UX designer. That's how I search in LinkedIn. I don't search any other way. I search by location, and it gives me a lot more results and better results. And then the other thing, if I try and run the exact same search on Google, but doing an in URL search, so site.ca LinkedIn, basically doing a search within LinkedIn, on Google within LinkedIn, the results are tremendous. So you practically don't even need a LinkedIn account, right? So it doesn't matter, your connections, all of that don't matter. I mean, that's a lot of results, and there are probably going to be a lot of false or positive results, and you've got to look through them. But the amount of people that you could find this way is it's incredible, really. Okay, and then joining groups and engaging in discussions. So this is the best way to get more eyeballs on your profile. So when you have the opportunity to connect join up to 50 groups, that's not something I would recommend. We just join a couple of groups that you're actually interested in. The ones that are the most popular with 100+ people in them, where people are engaging all the time, and you'll find that you'll get a ton of people just looking at your profile by engaging in conversation. And then sharing interesting and meaningful content, right? So this is a job posting, and I don't just use social media as a job board because it's the best way to alienate people. Like you don't walk into a networking event yelling, "Indigo's hiring UX designer, #TO jobs, like apply here." You wouldn't do that, right, in person, because that's awkward. It's socially awkward, right? And so why do that online, right? So when I'm posting a job, I'm including Indigo so people can link back to the page and hopefully follow it. I'm including a short URL link, a really nice image, because we all know that people tend to engage more with visual content. Within 2 days, 17 likes, 4 comments, not bad, right, for a job posting. But then here's an example of something that came straight from our system. It was posted 18 days and not a single person engaged, right? There's nothing interesting about this, right? And then following other companies, because it's really interesting to know what your competitors are doing, right? If somebody's doing something really great, and not only that, it's basically a directory to all of their staff. So just by following them, I know everybody who works there. So why not, right? It just does the recruiting for me. And then organization. So once I find people, there are lots of free tools. Jeanette, see you. There are a lot of free tools that you can use on LinkedIn, so you don't need to have the paid service, right, a recruiter page. But just by saving people is the best way to pipeline them. So in the How Google Works book, they talk about how recruiting is like shaving, and if you miss one day, it shows. So the idea is that you should be recruiting every day. So you don't necessarily need somebody today, but you might need them tomorrow, right? And instead of always everything being sort of a fire and an emergency, you have them tucked away in a list of mobile developers. You can always just tap into them later. But if they're not there, you're always scrambling, right? And then measuring success. So a lot of ways to do this on LinkedIn, very basic ways. Number one, just tracking how many new followers you get, tracking how many new endorsements you get. But there's a new tool that just came out about 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn that allows you to see exactly where people are coming from when they viewed you on LinkedIn, so you know exactly where to focus your time. So if they've come from the mobile app, or they viewed you on a group discussion, or you sent them an in-mail, so it'll break that all down for you. Facebook. So Facebook is like referral program 2.0. I encourage everybody to tell their employees and their friends to just share the job postings on their Facebook page, right? So friends, family. So it's just encourage their employees to share their job postings on social media, right? They're on it anyway, so might as well. You can send messages about job postings to your fan pages, or to the fans following your page. Commenting on popular discussions and then linking back to your page or your job posting. Facebook graph search is like the best thing in the world. How many of you guys have used graph search for recruiting? You have? It's amazing, right? And then I would say add your job title and company name to your profile. I mean, if you're comfortable recruiting on your personal page, I am. I don't add people, but it's a way for me to direct source people, and then I find them on LinkedIn. And then finding candidates, on LinkedIn and continuing the conversation. So Facebook graph search, easy, intuitive, over 1 billion registered users on Facebook, 240 billion photos, 1 trillion connections, and it's awesome because it's all based on natural language, right? So, I forgot to annotate. Basically you go into your toolbar and you just type in people who live in Toronto and are web developers, and bam, more than 1,000 people came up, right? What I do from a retail perspective, because it's really hard to find people that work in or live in Fort St. John, which is like a tiny town off the Alaska Highway in northern BC. So what I do is type in people who like Chapters Indigo and Coles and live in Fort St. John. So, the people who are already engaging with my brand and live there, I can just find them, right? So you can search all sorts of criteria, and if you don't feel comfortable messaging in here, keep in mind if you're not friends, your message will go to your other inbox. Have you guys discovered your other inbox already? No? So on your desktop, if you go on Facebook, you have 2 inboxes, your regular one and your other. Other is everyone who's been trying to reach out to you, but they're not your friends. So you should go and check it out, because there are probably some old ex-girlfriends. So Twitter. Over 500 million active registered users, 58 million tweets sent out every day, 43% of users are using their phones to tweet. Hashtag jobs has been used 14 million times, so for people that think Twitter is not a good place to recruit, you are wrong, because I hire people on there all the time. Hashtag career, 500,000 times, and hashtag hiring is #1 for hiring managers and recruiters. So how to be successful? Tweet often. I mean, how to be successful on Twitter, period. Be there all the time. Follow and connect with local malls, radio stations, and MPs. Radio stations and members of parliament tweet out jobs like it's nobody's business, and they do it for free, and they have a lot of followers. So it's a lot of eyeballs on your job postings, right? And you don't need to pay for Monster. Share a mix of content. So again, just stay away from always posting job postings, because that's not very interesting, right? And retweet what other people have to say. I'm sure you guys know that. Hang on a second. I'm talking like a mile a minute. And then participating in Twitter chats. So there's some really good Twitter chats that happen in Toronto. We hired somebody on our digital team that I found off of hashtag SMM Measure, like that chat. Amazing, right? And good people on these chats all the time, right? An hour of your day on Twitter. I don't know. And then organize there on Twitter. So organize on the industry they work in. I'm probably going to add you to a list because I want to remember you. It's a bunch of noise. I'm automating tweets. Not gets it just for. It just gets really noisy. things I try to look for. On Twitter, how many follow wonk.com? Amazing. News. Wonk.com is a place where you can people based on in their bios, their location, and country. So, web and they just show up. And yeah, this is what it looks like. Job title, people don't. So what I do is just connect with all the web developers and just say like, hey, if you know anybody that might be interested, just spread the word if you don't mind. And if they do mind, well then whatever. Fine. And that's all. I did have a whole section on screening candidates on social media because a lot of hiring managers are doing that. So keep in mind that people are still wrapping their heads around privacy settings. So know when to draw the line. Not everybody needs to have a perfect social media presence. And a whole other section on ROI and return on investment. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them. I hope you understood that.
Yes, we can take one question and then go on to the next talk. Any questions for Kathleen?
Are these slides going to be online anymore?
Yes.
They are, yeah, or I can
That's
just send it to you.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Kathleen.
Oh, we were just one question.
Sorry, I thought I saw something fine. When you Googled for LinkedIn, did you specify which section you're searching for? So the titles, or would that pull up like any skill, any description?
Yeah, you can do that. So what
Okay.
I did is I put current because that's the word just before someone's current title.
Okay.
So that's how Google sort of indexes their stuff. So use those words, right? So if you want to find skill, just use skill instead. Yeah, I can send you that link after.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next we've got Jason Theodor, who's been here before. Last year, I think. So he's here again with another talk on failing to succeed. And he's going to be doing it on his iPad, and there'll be some drawing apparently happening on screen. So hopefully this will work.
So let's talk about failure. Technology is one of the most infallible. We're not doing exactly what you want. All right, so the worst time to talk to anybody is right in between them and food. So I'm going to try to not go on and on too much and just dive right into it. So this this entire presentation it came out of a dare where I was doing my stump talk over and over and over again for a couple of years about creativity, using really cool keynote graphics and animations, and just had to stand up front looking really confident and clicking on a button. And most of the time that worked. And one of the conference organizers said to me, you know what, failure, we're doing this thing on failure. I'd like you to do a talk, but I don't want you to use Keynote at all. As a matter of fact, I'd prefer it if you just spoke without anything. And I said, oh, crap. Well, yeah, that sounds fun, and I'll give it a shot. But I kind of cheated, and I decided just to do something completely different, and that was to create a presentation where I have to interact with the presentation in real time and with the audience at the same time, and it's kind of fun. I've done it a few times now. But what I like about this is that there's a lot of room for error. At the very first time that I did this talk, I wrote "succeed" with one C in it, and it was kind of funny. It wasn't intentional. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll get right into this. And hopefully we can get through this in about 20 minutes, if that's all right. They're not here. Okay, cool. So we'll go. So my name is Jason Theodor. I I've been a creative director in Toronto for about 16, 17 years now. Jason Theodor is short for JTED, which is my handle on Twitter and a couple of other things. The hashtag for this may as well be FailTO. Why not, right? For this conversation, or if you wanted to use fail or fail to succeed. Fail has so many things, you don't even want to go there. I just want to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what success and failure are about. You think about success, and I had a conversation earlier today with Jen, actually, and it was, people don't talk a lot about their failures. They don't talk a lot about the things that happened before they were successful, and a lot of times we see people as just being successful overnight, or suddenly they're just doing an amazing job at something, and we go, oh man, wow, I don't think I could ever do that kind of thing. And here's where I spelled it wrong the first time. Success, it's kind of like this bright light shining in your face. It's like, hey, I'm successful, I've done this great thing, and hopefully it's not a locomotive or a car coming at you, but it's a bright light. And when a bright light is shining in your face, you have a really difficult time seeing anything that actually lies behind it. And with any success, there are so many fails in the background that you have no idea. You might know absolutely nothing about. You might not need to know about them. But the point is, someone that is successful without ever failing is somebody that will be able to teach you absolutely nothing. So it's funny because nobody wants to learn more from a failure intuitively, right? You could be 23rd in the world of 6-7 billion people at skeet shooting, and there aren't a bunch of reporters clamoring to talk to you at the Olympics. You came in 23rd. 23rd, well, you know. I am not a terribly good drawer, but this is not the Mad Hatter. This is meant to be Wonka, sarcastic Wonka, and he's saying, you're a failure? You must have so much to teach us. Right? Let's all get as close to failure as we possibly can. Not something that you generally think of as being important, or that you want to get too close to, almost like it's catching. You know, if someone's failing, it's like, I might get a little bit of that failure on me. So before I did this talk, I thought I need to know a little bit more about failure, and I need to know a little bit more about success, because when I started this, I just made the assumption that success and failure were sort of these mutually exclusive things, or they were opposites to each other. I went to Amazon and to do some research, which I often go to strange places that collect a lot of data to just see if I can understand some things from pop culture type of perspective. So I decided to just do a keyword search in their business and finance section on how many books were available for sale on using the keyword success. There were about 80,000. 80,000 books out there on success. So I did the flip side of that, and I looked up failure, and the ratio was about 40 to 1. Now, those of you that are really good at math, I can't remember anymore, but it should 2,000, 20,000, something. So instead of there being 80,000 books, it was a factor of 40 less. And then I thought, okay, that's not all I want to know. A 40 to 1 ratio is interesting, but if failure is becoming this topic, and you're gonna, I know that you've all heard, hey, fail fast and fail often. Why don't let's fail as quickly as we can and fail, get on the fail train and all that. Maybe you haven't really get on the fail train. I wanted to get an understanding of an increase in time, like, is failure something that's become more popular? So I tried to peel back how many of the books on failure were written in 2014, how many in 2013, how many in 2012. So I sat there, because I'm not a programmer and I don't know how to build these things. I counted hundreds and hundreds of books that were based on failure from a particular year. And I only counted back to 2010, because my God, I've got other things to do. But I discovered that around a third of these books, these new books, have been written since 2010. About a third of the books on failure, which means that there's been a significant increase in interest over time. And now I've just realized I should have put indigo on. I didn't. I could have used the indigo solution. It's quite good. The thing that I realized after I did a bit more researching and got a little deeper into this was, okay, failure, success, failure's getting more popular. The organizer wants me to do a talk about failure. Why am I a subject matter expert about failure? And I started to feel really insecure. Why me? Why would he want me to talk about failure? Is there something that I did that was wrong that stands out? So I started feeling a little bit insecure, and then I realized that it's very true that failure is not something that we really, really want to associate ourselves with. I saw an article, I'm going to go back. I saw an article the other day on my Zeit. I don't know if any of you use Zeit. It's one of my favorite apps for reading stuff because just stuff comes to you that you like. And there was an article that said how following my dream as a startup ruined my life. And I was like, I'm not going to read that article. I can't read that article. It will destroy me because we all want to believe that, we're all going to be the next Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. So here's what my talk is about. I'll finally get to it and then we'll really get moving. But failure, what is it? Let's define it. Let's come up with an idea of what it actually means, what causes it, and what can we do about it? And this is all in very simplistic terms and observations. So hopefully you'll find some of it useful. So part one, success versus failure. One of the places that you go and look for inspiration and information is Amazon. And one of the places that I go and look for inspiration and wisdom, of course, is Star Wars. So, we all know this. This is so much better if I have a mic because in a loud room, but do or do not. There is no try. That's hard to do loud. Kudos to Jim Henson and his group. But do or do not. So Yoda is someone that comes from, a long time ago. Not only a galaxy far, far away, but a long time ago. And it's an old idea, as you'll see, that this binary concept that we have failure and we have success. And success, what it used to mean back in the day, was an outcome of an undertaking, and that meant any outcome. All right, it didn't mean that it had to be the outcome you wanted. It meant that if things moved forward, if there was a next step, if there was a succession of kings, that was a success. The next thing happened. Success just meant the next thing happened. So a successful voyage that ended in its ultimate destruction and the crew dying on the rocks, that was a successful voyage. It left the pier. We don't think about success that way anymore at all. And failure, consequently, was about the lack of an outcome or a non-occurrence, a failure to launch, something that didn't happen. So failure essentially meant that nothing started. So this is how we generally used to consider failure. Failure was if you didn't get past start. It was just if you didn't actually get off your ass and try. That was a fail, absolute fail. A success was basically anything after that point, right? So success was everything else. Basically, any attempt, it didn't matter, the next thing happened. Hooray for you, you did a great job. We've totally changed that now. We've completely altered our concept of what success means. And this is interesting. We've changed it from a goal or something happening to actually accomplishing our goal or having the outcome that we want. So it's much more self-centered of an idea of success. Now success isn't the next thing that happened, it's the next thing that happened exactly the way I wanted it to happen. That was the accomplishment of the goal. And failure now means that we didn't quite get to the finish line. We didn't quite get to exactly what it was that we wanted in the first place. So you can see that we've really created an almost entirely flip side, opposite here. Success is now this absolute minute little point in time of the end, the exact thing we wanted. And failure now takes up all of that space in between, from starting, from all the courage that goes into it, from trying over and over again, failure, all the way to the final outcome. So we've gone from not starting to not finishing first as our definition of failure, and we've gone with success from having any result at all to the specific desired result. And what's happened is that in this process of us changing our definitions, things have gotten really mushy in the middle. And this whole idea of do or do not, there is no try. Well, try is basically everything in between these two spaces. It's not this binary thing. Now, there are a lot of different ideas about failure out there, and if you go and do some research and take a look, there are a billion little ideas. Lots of people like to make cool little quotes about the stuff that they say about failure, and you know, it can become cute, or it can become interesting, or it can be profound. But one by Thomas Watson, who's a guy who works for IBM, he said, if you want to increase your success rate, you need to double your failure rate, as though somehow if you purposely try to fail fast and fail often, is probably where that came from, you're going to eventually use those as stepping stones to get you to that final place that you want to be, almost like setting up blocks to get over a giant wall that's stopping you from being the most amazing human on the planet. There's other ideas around failure. This one's sort of appropriated from the book The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, but it's the idea that failure, perhaps, instead of just being this thing that we need to try to get as much of so that we can clamber over it, that failure digs a hole that enables you to then contain the success that you achieve. So in that sense, the failure is creating space for the success to actually happen. I like that one. You might be familiar with Mr. Jordan. Very, very popular saying of his, Michael Jordan's, was this idea that he's failed over and over and over again in his life. And that is why he succeeds. It's because he tried. It's because he missed 9,000 shots. How many shots did he have to miss? He kept trying. He missed more shots than anyone else because he threw more shots, because he tried more than anyone else at the time. So it gives you an idea of where failure sort of sits right now in the modern psyche as this tiny thing that we have to obtain, and failure is everything that exists in between. So what are the types of failure? And when we think about types of failure, we usually think in terms of scale. We think of how epic a failure was, or how big, or how much we just totally screwed something up. It was the biggest thing that we'd ever done. Or maybe it was just a small inconvenience. I forgot my car keys, or I had a little accident. That sounded weird. But failure and accidents and things can happen at different scales at any point in time. And I like to ask the audience, what are things that can go wrong when you're speaking in front of an audience? And maybe some of you can just throw out a couple examples. Just
sweaty armpits.
Sweaty armpits. Wear a suit. That's a suit jacket.
Video won't play.
your video won't play. What happened to me one time was 45 minutes of technical failure to a crowd. I had 1 hour to talk. It was 45 minutes of the computer not connecting. And then I had to blow through everything. The people that were left, the 10, 5, 3 people that were left, because they were asleep, saw their my whole talk in 15 minutes. So it's brutal. It can be brutal. Anything else?
Despondent audience.
Yes, despondent audience. So either you chose the wrong audience to stand in front of, or you had a terrible presentation, or it just wasn't the right mix. And so there's many, many things that can happen. And I like to divide it into two when it comes to me. There's the difference between excuses and reasons, and that with excuses you blame other people, but with reasons you take responsibility. So, if someone came out of nowhere right now and body checked me and threw my threw my iPad to the ground and destroyed it, that would be kind of out of my control. I could use it as an excuse. It's like I tried to talk to Dev TO and I got attacked. I've heard that always happens. Or there's a reason and you take responsibility for it, which is, I forgot to bring the right cord, or I didn't power my device before I came, and I didn't think of all those things beforehand. Really, it comes down to two types or two causes of failure. And the first one, sadly, is you. And I don't mean you or you, I mean yourself. That's the intrinsic failure. That's failure that comes from either not being prepared, or maybe not being trained, or not having enough experience, or not getting enough sleep, but something that you have control over to a certain degree. And then there is everything else. And the things that you can't control are the extrinsic. So think of it this way. Intrinsic failure. Intrinsic failure, you ask yourself, what if? All right? What if this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens? What if they don't have the cord that I have? What if I run out of batteries? What if my armpits start to drip? Or what can I do to make this, to mitigate some of those things? So that's the intrinsic failure that I can try to control. Intrinsic failure. And I'm going to give you a really short, truncated version of an example of presenting in front of 45 financial executives in a foreign country that had come there for 3 or 4 days. They were very senior. They were burning a ton of cash just to even be in the same room for an hour, never mind 3 days. And my team was responsible for showing them some ideas. They had come to see us present to them solutions to some of the problems that they had posited. There were at least 6 or 7 different countries represented in the room. And I stood up and was talking, and I was explaining some aspect of this social media tool that we were making. And this was a solution that we had gotten the question from our client liaison, who had said, okay, these are the things that they really need you to focus on, provide them solutions on that. So I'm providing what I think is a brilliant solution to this problem. It wasn't quite this brilliant, but in the middle of my talking about it, a man in the audience said, wait a second, to me, interrupted this whole beautiful flow and said, that's not what we asked for. That's not what we need. That's not what we want. And I said, oh, well, and then another guy said, yeah, that isn't even close to what we want. And then another guy actually stood out of his chair, stood up, and pointed at me and said, why did you do this? Why are you doing this completely the wrong way? And I looked at our client liaison, who's sitting right about there, and I just, I gave him this look that I thought communicated, this is your moment to basically rescue to say, all right, like, sorry, we asked him to do this, but at the same time, his wheels were turning and he's going, do I want to stay in good with my colleagues or do I want to stay in good with the agency? Which one would be more beneficial to my life? And he decided, unfortunately, to say, yeah, why did you decide to go that way? That wasn't what we had agreed on. And then the place went crazy. And it was about this, it seemed like this many people were all standing and shouting at me, standing alone in the stage in a foreign country, in a strange hotel, thinking that I was going to get attacked for real. And it was going to be all over. What happened was our wonderful planner stood up and came in between me and the audience while all this chaos was happening and said, everybody, we did it wrong, took total responsibility. He said, this is what we're going to do, and he created a plan. And he said, we're going to break up into groups, we're going to break up into teams, we're not going to waste it your entire time. What we're going to do is, you guys, 5 of you guys are going to go with one of our team here, and 5 of you guys are going to go with one of our team here. We're going to discuss everything. We're going to go from top to bottom, soup to nuts, every single thing that you wanted to cover, and we're going to capture it all and we're going to get it all down. And that's what we did for the entire afternoon. Then we took all that material back to the hotel, and the team stayed up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, and we rearranged it, and we set up brand new objectives, new ideas, et cetera, et cetera. The next morning we presented those, and everyone was like, wow, that's cool. This is great. This is like the best thing I've ever seen. And we were like very, very tired and dead from that. But the point is that sometimes you have to you have to die.
Yes.
So you have to have these epic failures because you actually learn something. Because now if a crowd turns on me, I know I don't know how to handle it. So intrinsic failure, it only occurs if you stop. If we had given up, it would have been over, it would have been dead, but we didn't. We kept going, we kept trying. It's just like, Thomas Edison, I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. It's like continue. And even when he found the filament, tungsten, I think, that he's looking for, he decided, you know what, okay, I've done 700 different elements, I'm going to do another 300 or 400 just to make sure there's one that's better than this one. So intrinsic failure that you have control over, don't stop. But then you have extrinsic failure, which is something that's completely out of your control. Mm-hmm. And we often feel like that. What's happening to me? I'm going to tell you a really short but personal story about something that happened to me. This doesn't relate to presenting to clients, but for some reason I was at work. And not that I was at work for some reason, but for some reason in the story and I went to find some people that were working on my team, and I walked through the lobby, and then all of a sudden the lobby started to turn and twist. And it almost went upside down, and I was going, what is happening? And turning my head. Anyway, the short of it was there was this little blood vessel in the back of my neck on the right-hand side that decided that over time it was just going to start to give away. Internally, the inside wall was just going to start to peel a little bit, and then blood would flow through and it would peel back a little bit more, and eventually it completely blocked an entire artery to my brain. And of course, that causes some problems. There were some blood clotting that happened and enough pressure, and then suddenly it went pow. And I had not been feeling great, but I thought I'd been traveling, and maybe I was just feeling a little shot, jet lag. And what happened to me in that moment was a vertebral artery dissection, which is the tear, and what they call an ischemic stroke. And it was like snap, and my entire life changed at that tiny, tiny little moment. Completely something that I couldn't have foreseen. They don't know why. They'll never know why. I'll never know exactly why it happened. I'll never know if it was congenital or if it was from some damage. But usually, if you get pounded in the back of the head, you remember that's happened unless it causes amnesia. And as far as I know, that had never happened to me.
You're here now. That's
But
important.
I am. And what I like to say to that is that what doesn't kill you, maybe it makes you stronger, maybe it makes you stranger, maybe it makes you But what came from this was a letting go of the idea that sometimes you can't control everything, and sometimes the things that matter is the letting go and the learning from the failure and letting it be a failure. So I read this quote from the Dalai Lama just the other day. Dalai Lama, I don't know why, but basically the Dalai Lama was talking about people being worried all the time, being anxious, and why is everyone always so stressed out and so anxious about everything? And he gave this amazing little quote where he just said, just ask yourself this one question. So I've sort of set it up like a flow chart here, but you ask yourself, can I do anything about this? Is there something I can do? Is this an intrinsic failure, or is there something I can do about it? And if the answer is yes, then you say, great, go do that then, and stop worrying about it. That's awesome. You can do something about it. Go do it. That's great. If the answer is no, I can't do anything about this, then you say, well, that's too bad, or that's unfortunate. You can't do anything about it, so stop freaking worrying about it. You don't have to continue to be anxious and make that failure last forever. You can move on from it. So what do you do after a fail? Let's go through this really quickly. The opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is actually learning. We talked before about, do you want to talk to or get mentored from someone that has only had successes in their life? What are you going to learn from them? Nothing at all. You don't want to become a success addict. You don't want to think that the only thing that matters is success. That takes out learning, that takes out play, experimentation, and iterations. You don't want to be addicted to just that one thing. You want to fail with your eyes open, though, because that's what allows learning to actually occur. You don't need to be afraid all the time. Don't worry. If you can't do anything about it, fine. If you can, then go do it. You instead want to be aware of failure. You want it to be something that you're conscious of, where you're present. So don't throw your failures out. Don't pretend that they didn't happen. And don't look away from them. Accept them. Learn from them. Build up an immunity. So it's like exposure to things that are hard, or exposure to things that are difficult, like, say, having the flu allows you to become a stronger or stranger person. So build up an immunity to failure by exposing yourself to it, not on purpose. And don't just focus on the destination, because there's all this stuff that happens in here that you're going to miss out on. If you're not paying attention to the present, you're not going to learn anything either. If you're just thinking about, well, I can't wait till I'm rich and old, I don't know. But the flip side of that is, don't become a failure junkie. Don't think that that failure is something that you want to aspire to or want to try to do more of. I think that that's also wrong. I don't think that we need to glorify it or mythologize it or worship it. We don't need to join the fail club. Getting vaccinated is very different than not washing your hands, right? You don't purposely expose yourself to germs because, hey, why not? Who cares if I get pink eye? It is impossible for failure to be your goal, because by its very nature, by its very definition, if you succeed at failing, it's just I just blew my mind. But if you don't have a goal, then you're just going to go around in circles. So if you don't actually think that you want to achieve something, you're just sort of muddling about. And are you learning or not? I don't know, I'm just kind of walking around in circles. So it's important that we take care of both the journey and the destination. Because Einstein said doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting something different to happen is the very definition of madness. And again, you're not learning. You're not learning. The only thing where it makes sense to perhaps sort of purposely fail is this creative problem reversal, where you take and you ask yourself, how can I make this a failure? How could I make this project fail? How could I make the worst LinkedIn profile that exists? Right? What would be the things that I'd list? It's like, I don't even want to go there, but if you wrote those things down, you're not going to actually do those things. Your brain is going to say, I want this to work out. I want this to become something good, and it's going to flip them, and you're going to actually come up with solutions to things that you may not have even thought of as problems before. And what you're essentially doing with problem reversal is you're dealing with some of that, the what if scenario, and you're mitigating some of that intrinsic failure. So it's important that we know the destination and that we pay attention to the journey and that we learn from the dead ends that happen. So you have two options. Now this quote comes from the Buddha. I don't know where, I didn't do this on purpose. It's just from research. There's two failures one can make along the road to success. One is not going all the way, and one is essentially not starting. So, you failed. Congratulations. Would you like to continue? Yes or no? If you say yes, then it's just a temporary failure, and what you need to do is change your attempt. Right? Just change your attempt. Try again, try again, try again. You can't hit the bullseye? Well, keep trying, keep practicing, or get some training. Find a mentor, find a good archer, change your bow, get different arrows, use a gun, I don't know, try something. Maybe that will get you to the space that you want to get to. You have to realize that failure is something that happened in the past. It's never in the present. You never actually have failed now. In the now, you haven't failed. You failed in the past. The outcome, undesired outcome, becomes the lesson, and now is just the attempt. So when you're in action, you're outside of the success-failure duality. You're doing something. You don't know the outcome. You don't know how it's going to go. So you fail, continue, yes or no. If you say no, then there's your true failure. And the whole point there then is to change your goal. So when I had the stroke, I had to change my goal. I had to say, well, instead of worrying about delivering these banner ads to the client, I'm going to worry about getting my memory back and being able to walk properly. Little things like that. But you change your goal. So if you can't hit the bullseye in that scenario and you keep failing, and you decide to stop, well, fuck it, baby, you just move the target, Change your goal. Decide that you're going to do something else. If my arrows are always going left, if I put the target over there, I'm going to hit a dead center. So you have to decide whether you're going to change your attempt or change your goal. So in conclusion, we've understood that failure has taken us from not starting something to not finishing first. That success has moved in through time from just a result to a desired specific result. And we understand now that our old definition and new definition sort of create this mushy middle where you cause intrinsic failure and everything else or something else causes extrinsic failure. But those are really only those two options. So don't be a success addict. Don't be a failure junkie. Instead, learn. And after a fail, continue, change your attempt, change your goal, and fail to succeed. That's it. That's my topic.
So I guess we can take one question or two questions, and then pizza's here.
What time is it? Is the pizza here? Can we get out of this room? It's freaking hot.
All right, so Jason is around, I guess. So you can ask him then. Pizza's here. We're going to have just, before you go, Jason, JP has a quick announcement about something coming up this weekend. JP's our videographer here at the FBO, so we'll let JP do that. I will put up the tweet that you need to put out to win FICC.
So this weekend, instead of developing all the software stuff, there's the Toronto Audio Video Entertainment Show. So for anyone who's interested in tech and gadgets and TVs and Google Glass, Oculus Rift, 3D printers, all that stuff, it'll be there at the Sheridan Center right across from City Hall. The website will be Teixeira.com, and Theodor will send out some info as well. You can talk to me. I'll be doing a presentation on home automation stuff.
All right, thank you guys. And pizza's here. There's still more beers and water and iced tea, so enjoy the rest of the evening.
I don't know where they got that. So, what's your video? Is there going to be a way to access that?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
Everything's on YouTube.
It will be on the link on the devil.com.
It's on DevTeal's website right now.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Way too close.
I know. That was more.
Yeah.
Done the presentation.